Hey guys, welcome to another video, another day, another tier list, and today we're going to be ranking, of course, the 12 apostles. Not the 12 apostles, the 14 apostles in total, of course. They're most commonly notated by the 12, the number 12, because Jesus himself appointed 12, but then the living apostles later on appointed Matthias to replace Judas. We know how that went. And they appointed Paul. And then after that, there were no more apostles. Sorry, Rome. But without further ado, let's get started. Starting with Bartholomew. He goes by Nathaniel in the book of John. He's one of the first disciples that Jesus recruits. How do we rank him? I mean, he said he doubts him a little bit at first. He goes, what can come out of what good can come out of Nazareth? He kind of looks at how the small town, the small upbringing that Jesus came from. So we're gonna give him a. We're gonna put him at B. We're gonna put him at B. All the apostles are gonna be pretty high. I mean, they're the foundation of the church. I mean, it's gonna be. I don't think I'm gonna feel right. I think I'm gonna be very sparse with low scores. Next, we got James. This is James. There's two James, but I think this is the James that is the brother of Jesus. Of course, there's not a consensus on that in church history, but he is, I believe, the author of the Epistle of James, also nicknamed the Proverbs of the New Testament. That book is very, very important, exhorting us to good works, prayer, wisdom, speech. Outside of the Bible, there's a nickname of him that's camel knees, because he was on his knees so much praying. So we're gonna put him at A, despite his earlier struggles. According to tradition, he actually doubted whether or not Jesus was actually God, that Jesus was the Messiah, but then actually believed it upon the resurrection. Next, we have Andrew, brother of Peter. Andrew's the brother of Peter. I don't remember. I don't remember. We're gonna put him at B. We're gonna put him at B. Next, oh yeah, you know who this is. Look at him. Look at him. It's cut off from the picture, but he's actually holding a money bag. You know who this is. This is Judas. This is Judas, who thought he should sell the expensive perfume, or oil, to quote unquote feed the poor, but of course he wanted the money for himself. He sells Jesus for a measly 20 shekels of silver. That's not a good look. That's not a good look. And of course, he betrays Jesus for 20 shekels of silver, and then he feels remorseful, but it doesn't. All evidence points to that remorse being a worldly kind of grief, not a godly one. Really, really a picture of just some of the worst evils that man is capable of. This is the guy that they had to replace later on, because he kills himself by hanging himself. So we're gonna put him at F. We're gonna be ruthless here. Sorry, Judas. Next we have Peter. Peter looks here. Look, he's angry. He's like, who's gonna betray you? Not me. That's funny, because Peter has some low lows, just like Judas. He does deny Jesus 3 times. 3 times. He's zealous at times, but cowardly at other times. Even after Jesus' resurrection, we know Paul had to rebuke him for his racism, for him, looking one way to the Jews and looking another way to the Gentiles. At the same time, he was very instrumental. His sermons are incredible in Acts. And unless he struggled with that cultural discrimination himself, I don't know how impactful it would be when he preached to Cornelius and his family. We're gonna put him in S tier. We're gonna put him in S tier. Not that he was extraordinarily special above everyone else, but there is something very special about that Caesarea Philippi confession where Peter says, you are the Son of God, and he received that blessing from Jesus, that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Next we have John. And John looks like a woman here, but John, obviously, so hugely important. John wrote 5 books in the Bible. That would be the Gospel of John, the 3 epistles, and of course the Apocalypse of the New Testament, the book of Revelation. This is the disciple whom Jesus loved, the one that was at the bosom of Jesus, the one who is just so instrumental to the church, despite him being one of the 2 of the sons of thunder, right? But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But John's works in the Bible are so very important. We're gonna put him right at S. And speaking of the S tier is looking to look a lot like the group that Jesus took with him to the Transfiguration, which actually reminds me, the Gospel of Mark would not exist without Peter. All tradition kind of points to Peter having his stamp of approval, and it's his kind of point of view that's being told through the Gospel of Mark. Next, we have Thomas, who despite, I'm sure, all of his wonderful works and all of his important contribution to the building up and the foundation of the church, is known for one thing, and that is doubting Jesus. Oh, Thomas, you can't doubt Jesus' words like that. He's been teaching you for 3 years. He told you that this was gonna happen in secret and gradually more and more, but he says he won't believe until I can feel his wounds and see him in person. And when that happens, he is shocked. He's very regretful, but he worships. So that does bump him up a little bit. He calls Jesus God in that moment. We're going to put him at B. I was struggling with that. I was trying to stall. Next, we have James Major. Sorry, the James son of Zebedee. The painting I have, the diagram in front of me says minor and major to show me which is which James. But this is James, the son of Zebedee. He's one of the sons of thunder. He with John, when they encounter some opposition, some hostility, they go to Jesus and say, hey, Jesus, should we pray down fire and hailstones upon these people? And Jesus says, rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Don't focus on that, So we kind of get a sense of how James and John were really aggressive. They're zealous, misguided. Obviously, we're gonna put him right at B. Next, we have Philip. Philip is also one of Jesus's earliest disciples. He calls him also with Bartholomew, or Nathaniel, as John calls him. Sorry, I just pulled up the book of John. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, there is this wonderful moment where Jesus says, Jesus finds Philip and tells Philip to follow me. And Philip is one of the people that God uses to actually bring Nathaniel to him, which produces this amazing line from Jesus where he tells Bartholomew, before Philip called you when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. And this is where Bartholomew replies, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. I totally forgot about that. Maybe I should move Bartholomew up a little bit. One of the things I love about Philip is he does exactly what John the Baptist said he's here to do. John the Baptist comes. It's the same chapter in John chapter 1. He says, I'm here to pave the way for Jesus so that you might look to Jesus. And that's actually exactly what Philip does for Nathaniel. We're going to put him at B. Next, we have Matthew. Oh, Matthew, the tax collector. Of course, people hated tax collectors, not just because they stole, but because they were Jews that were working for the Roman Empire, for the other government. They were like traitors in that sense. But of course, Jesus redeems Matthew, and Jesus calls Matthew to himself. And Matthew, of course, ends up writing the Gospel of Matthew, which in the first couple centuries of the church, Gospel of Matthew was the most popular gospel. It was the most quoted gospel. Today, of course, John's gospel is probably the most popular, but just for that gospel, even though I don't know too much about him, I'm going to put him at S. S tier. S tier. Luke is not an apostle, but if he was up there, if he was, he might be up there in S too because he wrote the Gospel of Luke. I don't know. There's something about if you're an author of the Gospel, you have my approval. Next, we have Thaddeus. I don't know who this is. I don't know who Thaddeus is, but look at him. He looks weird. He's got that weird hair. He's looking at him. Well, his eyes squinted. He's like, what's going on? Yeah, that's an E. E tier. Next, we have Simon, not to be confused with Peter, who is also called Simon. What does Simon do? I'm trying to remember. I should have looked up all of this before, but I like his beard. It's like I can't grow a beard, so maybe when I see people with good beard, and back in those times you couldn't groom your beard, so if he actually looked like that, I think I have to put him at A. So that's the 12. These are all pictures from that famous Da Vinci painting from the Last Supper. But next we have the additional apostle. This is Matthias, who comes in because Judas dies, and they read this psalm that prophesies the death of Judas, and they say, we have to appoint another one, just like the psalm says. And it comes down to two candidates. I don't remember the name of the other one, but it's Matthias and the other one, and they cast lots to decide who's going to be the 12th apostle to replace Judas. And Matthias gets it, which, what does that say about Matthias? You want a coin toss? You got. I think a lot of apostles wish, a lot of disciples wish they would have made the list because they want a coin toss. We're gonna put you at C. Last but not least is what I was about to say, but actually Paul, the apostle Paul himself, calls himself the least of the apostles. I don't take that as false humility. I think that's true humility, genuine humility. Him saying, whatever I contributed to the founding and the building of the church, I'm the least of them. Peter's. I think he sincerely believes Peter's done more, and John has done more. I think he sincerely believes that. Paul, what an incredible story, right? He a persecutor of the church, but then on the road to Damascus, Jesus encounters him and converts him and convicts him and turns him into an absolute superhero of an apostle, if I could use that kind of language. He spends 3 years in Arabia studying, reading up on God's word. He writes some of the most important words in the New Testament. He would have written the most if you don't count Luke's writing. But speaking of Luke's writing, Luke's gospel was most likely authorized by Paul, and that's why it's in the Bible, because it's under the apostolic authority of Paul, the good doctor that that hung around with Paul. He wrote the Gospel of Romans, which has the most systematic explanation of the gospel. He's written Galatians, a defense of justification by faith alone. He's the Pauline theology that marks that really defines the New Testament, the way he was so Christ focused and Christ centered. No one has done more to influence my life, certainly, but I think a lot of Christians today, or Christians that really lived in any age, than Paul, apart from Jesus Christ. So Paul, the Paul the apostle to the Gentiles, that he's sometimes called. You look at his journey. You look at his journey through Acts. I'm thinking of how he got in a shipwreck, got bitten by a snake, and he just starts preaching the gospel. I mean, his love for Christ, his joy for Christ in Philippians, his love of God's sovereign grace in Ephesians, his love for the people in the church, always at the end of his letters calling them out by name, his doctrine of the second coming in Thessalonians. It's a really, really, if you want to be a well-rounded Christian, you would do well to maybe start with the Gospels, but then get a good understanding of what is God teaching through Paul through his letters. So there you have it. There is the tier list. Thank you all for watching, and have a good day.